Hi everyone, Heather here with astrologywithheather.com, and I am back with another weekly forecast. This one is for Monday, April 26th, all the way through to Sunday, May 2nd of 2021. And this week we have a big energy. There is a super moon brewing in the sign of Scorpio in a T-square forming with Uranus and the stellium in Taurus, along with Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. This is huge, you guys. And so what does this all mean? Well, first and foremost, it means that we are in for an emotional roller coaster. The moon, as many of you are already aware, rules our emotions. And when we have a full super moon, like we're having this Monday, so you're probably already feeling this if you're watching this on Saturday or on Sunday, because this is coming up very quickly. But this super moon that we're having on Monday is going to really amplify our passions. It's going to amplify our emotions. It's going to amplify our internal subjective experience. And because it's a full moon, it's going to cause it to spill out all over the place. The moon is actually at its fall in Scorpio, which means that there's going to be a lot of intense emotional energy brewing beneath the surface, and the full moon is going to bring that out. It's also going to bring this emotionally charged energy around making really dramatic, really crazy changes all of a sudden in our lives, because this is in opposition to the sun conjunct Uranus, conjunct also Venus and Mercury. We're going to be making a lot of snap decisions right now. And I'm already seeing this with friends, family members, clients, people in my cosmic community. People are just all of a sudden having these life-changing moments or deciding on a dime that they feel like they can no longer take it and they need to do something different. That can be good, that could be bad. It depends on where you're at right now and what's going on in your own individual birth chart, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But before we get into everything else with the general forecast, I just want to mention, for those who are new to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So you never miss an important astrology update, because I do a new weekly forecast every single Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Even if you're not new to my channel, the way that I structure my videos is that I start with a 5 to 10 minute general forecast. Do not skip this, because this is going to provide an important context for the energy we'll be discussing in your 12 signs forecast. Speaking of which, when we do get into the forecast for all 12 signs, make sure you listen to your rising sign, sun sign, and your moon sign to get a more holistic overview of the energy for the week ahead. The rising sign will be the most predominant energy, the sun sign will be secondary, and the moon sign is important to listen to as well, although this will be more internalized and more subjective. Finally, at the end of each video, I do a 2 to 3 minute rundown of next week's energy so you can be even further ahead in planning for what's to come. So if you're interested in that, stick around till the end. So back to the general forecast. Supermoon. So what the heck even is a supermoon, right? So a supermoon occurs when the moon reaches its closest point to the earth at the same time or within the same span of time as the moon is full. And so what this does is it gives us this vantage point of the moon where it looks enormous. It looks really, really large, much larger than a normal full moon, especially as it's rising, right? So as it's rising on the eastern horizon at sunset, which actually the full moon always rises exactly at sunset because the sun is in opposition to the moon. So that means the sun is on one side of the earth, the moon is on the other side of the earth. And full moons in general have a very specific, unique gravitational pull on the earth that influences all sorts of things, like the reproductive cycles of plants and animals. Obviously, the tides are a big one, and even the reproductive cycles of humans. So there's actually a biological, tangible influence that we can view, right? On a physical level, we can see it with our eyes. We can, view it even not in a scientific way, just by observation, just by being here on this planet. And so the full moons are notorious for bringing things to a culmination point, for causing a little bit of a stir. And especially when it's a supermoon, because the moon is so close, and so its pull, its influence on all of us is going to be much stronger. And like I mentioned at the start of this video, the moon in astrology represents primarily our inner emotional subjective experience. And when the moon is full, there's some things being highlighted involving that inner emotional subjective experience that we need to bring forth and bring out into the open. Because this is highlighting the ongoing year-long square between Uranus and Saturn, that's part of what's being illuminated. This frustration with the status quo, this frustration with certain rules, regulations, restrictions that we've imposed upon ourselves or that have been imposed upon us from the outside. And so this is a time where on an emotional level, we might realize that we've reached our breaking point and we might feel burnt out. We might have too much emotional energy pouring out of us. We might feel like we want to control it, restrict it, limit it in some way, rein it back in. But I feel like it's going to be kind of hard to do. That Scorpio energy is usually good at, hiding their emotions. Like they feel things really intensely, but they don't trust other people enough to let them in, right? Somebody who has a Scorpio moon natally would be an example of that. And this is kind of an energy where we are going to be feeling more suspicious of other people. We might be feeling a little bit more paranoid, and we might not necessarily want to show or to tell other people how we feel. We might just decide we're going to make these changes all at once in secret and then tell people. If that's the case, that opposite end of the spectrum there with Venus conjunct Uranus, you're going to cause some disruption and some upheaval in your relationships by doing that. And so you do want to still make sure that you're maintaining that balance and that you're taking into account the needs of other people. With Saturn in the mix, you also want to make sure, as I've been saying all year long, that you're being very deliberate in the changes that you make. If this is something that comes up and it's reached its breaking point and you feel so strongly you need to do it right now, make sure this is something that you've already been planning for, you've already been contemplating, something that you've already sort of set in motion in one way or another, where you've set the framework for it. That's going to be your best bet. If it's something where all of a sudden you're having this emotional trigger and you just feel like you want to throw everything out and start from scratch, maybe sit with that until, the emotions kind of die down after this full moon energy on Monday. And then if you still feel like it, if you still like, yes, a few days later or even the next week, I need to change this, right? Maybe the full moon was illuminating that, then move forward with it. So you don't have to do it all at once, even though you will feel pressure. It'll feel like, oh gosh, I have to do this right this second. But chances are you don't. So that's part of this energy as well. The other thing I want to mention is that Pluto, which is the modern ruler of this full moon energy, the dispositor of the moon for this full moon, Pluto is actually stationing to go retrograde on Tuesday in the afternoon if you're here in the Northern Hemisphere in the United States. And so Pluto, when it stations to go retrograde, it can bring a lot of intensity. This is a time where things stick out and they become more important, and the psychological end of things becomes intensified in a lot of ways as well. And so especially if you are a Scorpio sun, moon, or rising, usually the Pluto stations, regardless of where they're falling in your chart, when they happen twice a year, they bring up something of great significance that you have to kind of go back and reflect on, or to change in some way, or they represent a major turning point, a major transformation, or a major transition in your life. And so if you have a lot of Scorpio energy, you'll be feeling this Pluto station as well. So that's something to just kind of also take into account. There is a ton of Scorpio, a ton of Pluto energy. It's pretty intense. And so that's the big energy for this week. And I'm going to discuss it for each of the 12 signs. But before we get into that, I just want to mention that I do have a free PDF download, my Astrology 101 guide, available for you down in the link in the description below to help you navigate what the heck I'm talking about, all the terminology, all the symbolism that I use in my weekly forecast and in my free tutorials here on YouTube. That is a free resource you can download down at the link in the description below. Also, I just wanted to let you guys know what's new in my Cosmic community, which is my membership site that is community-led, astrology-driven, and I actually have a couple of different things coming up here. So Last week we did our live Q&A. This week I actually have a really special guided imagery from one of our community members for the new moon in or the full moon in Scorpio to help you to find calm, find peace, navigate through the change, upheaval, and transition. And so that will be released. I also have a new series all about the planets in astrology, giving a unique perspective and helping you to dive deep into your own chart. I'm starting a new series on medical astrology, which should be released sometime in the middle of next month. And so that's coming up where we're going to be diving into a lot of medical astrology information. I have my new moon gathering coming up next month, which I do every single month where we cover the entire forecast for the lunar month ahead and set our intentions together. There's just so much. And I also just released a new tutorial, which is the first in a series on the major life transits or the major age-related life transits. And so we started with the major childhood transits and cycles. And so you can gain access to that and all sorts of exclusive content down at the link in the description below. And so let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs, shall we? And of course, as always, we're beginning with Aries and Aries rising. Where are my zodiac signs? There they are. All right. And so for Aries and for Aries rising, let's back this up a little bit here so I can see. For Aries and for Aries rising, this energy is actually happening in your second and your eighth house. There might be something where you're reaching a breaking point when it comes to a major purchase, when it comes to your finances, when it comes to bills, debts, when it comes to your financial situation in general. It's like you've been wanting to change something, you've been wanting to create more financial independence, and now you're reaching that point where you absolutely just feel like you have to move forward, you have to start, you have to change something. If that's the case, one of the outs, by the way, for this energy here with the full moon is the Mars trine to the full moon. And I forgot to mention that at the start of this video. And so if that is the case, just make sure that what you're initiating benefits not just you, not just maybe your interests or your social circle or whatever it is, but make sure that what you're venturing into financially also benefits your family, your home life, what it is you want to come home to after work, your parents, something along those lines, because Mars is in Cancer in your fourth house. And so there could be something that you feel like you want to get started with involving maybe a down payment on like a mortgage or some land or some property, or something involving maybe refinancing your house or getting a home equity loan or something along those lines. If that's the case, just make sure that it's beneficial for all concerned, meaning everyone who's involved in the situation and involved in your family. Also, don't make any dramatic financial changes all at once necessarily if they're not something that you've thought about before, because that could cause a little bit of a ruckus, that could be more difficult to resolve or could pose challenges. And also, whatever it is that you initiate, just know that it's not going to go as quickly as you think it will or as quickly as you want it to. So patience is key, but you can manifest your financial goals. You're starting to see illuminated the ways in which you can create the financial freedom that you've been craving. For Taurus and for Taurus rising. So for Taurus, this energy is happening in your sign and in your seventh house. This is all about relationships. Relationships are highlighted tenfold right now. There's a need to change something when it comes to your important work-related relationships potentially, or maybe there's something going on in your work, your career, your public standing, or there are rules, regulations, restrictions being imposed upon you from somebody in a position of authority, and that's weighing on your marriage. It's weighing on your relationships. It's causing turbulence or upheaval. There's also this need right now. So you're like working on making some really dramatic changes, feeling frustrated with your current circumstances, or maybe you're being prevented from making some really dramatic changes, even though you're frustrated with your current circumstances and they feel heavy. And now you can finally see the light. You can finally see how you need to go about engaging in that transformation or that transition. However, this is an important time to take into account the needs of other people. The other thing that's being highlighted is your relationships and the need to, maybe confide in somebody that you trust, or take into account the needs or the opinions of somebody else who you care about. Initiating or engaging in open and honest communication, negotiation, forming some sort of agreement that's mutually beneficial, where you really trust the person that you're getting involved with. That can also be a big part of this full moon energy, and that's actually a really positive way to use this energy. For Gemini and for Gemini rising. So for Geminis, this energy is happening in your 6th house. So this is a busy, busy, busy time. So Geminis have been working more behind the scenes on some stuff right now. You might be working on making some changes in secret, studying things that are unusual outside of the box in secret. You've been working on new and innovative ways to engage with your spirituality and spiritual practices, or to engage with your creativity. It could also be that you're making changes that require you to let go of a lot, or to end a lot of cycles or habits or addictions or situations in your life. So there's been a lot of internal work going on. And it's been a little chaotic for Geminis, and probably a little restlessness in your dreams and in your sleep state for some of you. But this full moon is actually bringing you back out into the open. It's causing you to have to put in some work. There is a financial opportunity that you could get started with this week, but you're going to have to be busy. You're going to have to do a lot when it comes to your day-to-day routines and activities. This is where something on an emotional level, or something emotionally turbulent or emotionally charged, is pulling you out of your comfort zone. It's pulling you out of this sort of behind the scenes energy that you've been engaged with, and it's pulling you back into having to deal with the physical reality. And that could be through your health, through your work, or through just day-to-day activities that you're being required to focus more on in order to create the change that you want to see in your life right now. And so that's a big pull for Geminis, but there is potentially a financial opportunity. Just know that if it does come up and if it is illuminated, make sure that you're thinking it through, and just know that it's going to take a little bit longer than you might want it to, or that you might believe that it will, in order for you to see the results. For Cancer and for Cancer rising. So this full moon is actually a little bit nicer for Cancer and for all of the water signs, really, because the full moon is actually going to be trining your ascendant sun or moon. And so especially if you are a Cancer, sun, moon, or rising anywhere from, I would say, 0 to 10, 11 degrees even, this is going to be benefiting you the most, and you're going to be feeling this energy in a very strong, really positive way. And so this full moon is illuminating your 5th house, which is the house of fun, play, passion, romance, hobbies, interests, things that you do because they bring you joy. This is also the house of children. And so if you are somebody who has children, if you are a parent, then children could become a focal point this week, especially at the start of the week. There could be something that you want to initiate or engage with or set in motion involving your children that you have been thinking about changing or engaging with for a little while, but maybe there's been financial blockages or power struggles that have been preventing you from doing so. The other thing too is that you've been focusing a lot on socialization. So there's probably been a lot of phone calls, emails, Zoom meetings, gatherings, activities. You've probably been feeling a little frazzled even by some of the communication coming in from your social networks. If that's the case, well, first off, if this involves the internet and social media, maybe take a little break from that. But this is going to highlight the need to kind of shift your focus. So shifting your focus from the needs of the group, the needs of your friends, back into your own personal needs, your need for aligning yourself with your passions, aligning yourself with your desires, aligning yourself with the things that bring you joy. Just know that whatever it is that you set in motion, and it could be a new hobby, a new skill set, it could be that you take a hobby or a skill set and you start to turn it into a business or something along those lines. Just know that it's going to take a little bit longer to get things off the ground or to get things moving than what you might want or what you might feel like it's going to happen. like the timeline that you believe is the timeline. And financial issues could be the hang up there. But other than that, you have the green light, and this could actually be a more positive energy for Cancers for sure. For Leo and for Leo rising. So for Leos, this energy is happening in your 4th house, which is the house of home, family, and property. This is actually going to be a more tense and intense energy for Leo, sun, moon, and rising, especially if your sun, moon, and rising is anywhere between, let's say, 0 and 10, 11 degrees, maybe even into like 15 degrees. I mean, this is a super moon, you guys. This is going to be really powerful, and you're going to be feeling an emotional upheaval, a lot of really intense feelings around your home, your family, your property. You might feel like you need to change something all at once. You might feel like you need to change a job or change your relationship or change your place of living in a way that causes a really dramatic shift in the energy. And you might feel all of a sudden like you need to do this all at once because emotionally you're reaching your breaking point. You can't deal with your parents anymore. You can't deal with your family anymore. You can't deal with this living situation anymore. You can't deal with being nagged by your spouse. You can't deal with your boss kind of hanging over your head. You need freedom. You need to change it, right? If that's the case, yes, change needs to happen, but it's not going to come easy, and it's not necessarily going to come quickly. Even if you make that change all at once, the results will take some time. And this could also stimulate some arguments, disputes, the need to work a little bit harder on your relationships, especially your romantic partnerships or your family or work-related relationships. And that could come up right now as well. This is a good time for you to kind of take a step away, even though it's still highlighting a lot of what's going on interrelationally. And when it comes to your work and your career, this is a time to kind of take a step back and hide from the world for a couple of days, spend time in contemplation, spend time in meditation, spend time, maybe harnessing the good psychic energy of the moon in Scorpio instead of, kind of letting it overpower you and you taking things to an extreme. For Virgo and for Virgo rising. So for Virgos, this energy is happening in your 3rd house, which is the house of communication, community. It's the house of your neighbors, your neighborhood, vehicles, short distance travel, all of these things, and also education. And on this axis here, where we have a stellium in Taurus in your 9th house and this full moon in the sign of Scorpio in your 3rd house, there could be a need to learn something new. There could be new information that's been hidden from you, or maybe hidden in plain sight that you couldn't quite comprehend or see yet, and it's being illuminated. There's a new level of understanding when it comes to the bits and pieces that make up the whole, and it's going to be like this massive revelation. This revelation could cause some sort of turbulence internally, mentally, psychologically. It could also cause some sort of turbulence in your communication. You could have turbulent or really emotionally extreme communication coming in this week. This is a good week to kind of take a step back from that if you can, especially work-related communication that seems really emotionally charged. After the supermoon is over, after this energy passes later in the week, it's not going to be as big of a deal as it is at the start of the week. That being said, this is a great energy for relationships, not necessarily work-related relationships, but relationships in general with your friends, your significant others, spouses, that type of thing. This is a great time to communicate your truth, to communicate how you truly and deeply feel about something really important to somebody really important in your life. And especially if you are a Virgo, sun, moon, or rising, I'm going to actually go with anywhere from 0 to 15 degrees here because of the trine with Mars and the fact that it's a supermoon. If you fall under that spectrum, this is actually going to be hitting you in a very powerful, very positive way. And you're going to be feeling, charged up and passionate about something on a deep emotional level that you want to initiate. And that's actually going to be one of the more beneficial energies that'll be activated with this full moon. And it could be due to that new information, that new revelation on a mental, psychological perspective sort of level that you'll be coming into this week. For Libra and for Libra rising. So for Libras, this energy is happening in your second house and in your eighth house. So this is the house of money. There's something being revealed to you. So there's been like a lot of chaos going on when it comes to joint finances, when it comes to people who are relying on you for money or people that you're relying on for money, joint finances in marriage, debt, taxes, insurance payouts, inheritance, investments, other people's money that comes in through not your own hard work, but through somebody else's. That's really what this eighth house energy has been bringing up. So maybe you've had some disrupting messages around taxes or around your spouse's income maybe has been disrupted in a positive way or in a negative way. It kind of depends on how this is, showing up in your chart. But there's been some tension there and this really intense need or this intense frustration that's causing you to want to gain or create more financial freedom for yourself. This is actually a time where the means to that end can be illuminated to you through your intuition or through something that gets started or initiated or you feel really passionate about when it comes to your career, your public reputation, the work that you're doing out in the world, or it could come directly from somebody in a position of power and authority or from somebody that you look up to, and all of a sudden you feel motivated to get started. Just know that even though this is something you feel passionate about, even though it feels urgent and it feels like it's going to happen right now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the end result will come quickly. It's going to take more work than you think. It's going to take longer than you think it will. But that being said, it is absolutely possible to make it happen. For Scorpio Rising. So for Scorpios, this energy is happening in your sign. So Scorpio, you are being highlighted and maybe not in the most pleasant of ways. So if you are a Scorpio, Sun, Moon, or Rising, especially between 0 and 15 degrees, you're going to be feeling the more intensified and more turbulent end of this spectrum, of this full moon energy. All of the fixed signs will. And so this is a time where you might be having emotional outbursts. The upheaval that's caused when it comes to your relationships, when it's come to your home life and your living situation, might be caused by you and your emotional outbursts or an inability to rein things in when it comes to your emotions. Usually Scorpio risings are pretty good at being like stone-faced and like very collected and hiding their emotions, not really expressing it when they don't want to. Scorpios have this talent, especially Scorpio risings, where they can make themselves completely unreadable if they want to. And this is going to be really hard to do. Like your emotions and your feelings about things are going to be pouring out of you, and you're probably already feeling this. Like, I can't hide the way I feel anymore. I'm too lit up about this. I'm too fired up about this. I'm too, emotional or distraught about this. You might find yourself crying or, lashing out in frustration. You might also find that the emotional component of this is causing you to want to change something really dramatically. Make sure that you take a step back and gain a sense of perspective. There's something that you might want to initiate involving travel plans or involving a new educational pursuit, or there could be something that's initiated that does shift your perspective in some way. That's a good thing. But when it comes to your relationships, there could be some changes coming up, and they could come up very dramatically, and these changes could involve your home, your family, your property, your place of living. So just kind of keep that in mind and be prepared. Whatever changes, whatever frustrations you're having that you want to shift and create more independence around, or to create something new around, just know that it's going to take a little bit more time and probably a lot more work than what you're planning for, but it is possible. It's just going to be a little bit more challenging. There will be some friction, there will be some unexpected hurdles, but it is absolutely possible. For Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. So for you guys, this full moon is happening in your 12th house, which is the house of endings. It's the house of secrets. It's the house of things that go on behind the scenes, behind closed doors. It's also the house that represents certain institutions that are hidden away from the world, or that you go to in order to be hidden away from the world, including, but not limited to, hospitals, temples, monasteries, churches, ashrams, places like that. So spiritual places that you go for healing, like hospitals, rehabilitation centers, also spiritual retreat centers, things of that nature. And so it could be that something's illuminated very literally, involving some sort of change or some sort of need to make a shift with those types of institutions, if those institutions are something you're involved with, or it could just come up unexpectedly. Maybe you have a coworker that's going to rehab. Maybe you have an opportunity to go on some sort of spiritual retreat. Maybe you decide that you want to find your faith again, and you decide to start, attending church or going to a temple, or, you want to visit a monastery and explore different religions, different types of spirituality, and that could be coming up for you. But this is a really important time of meditation and contemplation. There's been a lot on your plate when it comes to your day-to-day activities, and especially your day-to-day work routines. There's something that you want to set in motion right now involving debt, a loan, a mortgage, joint finances, inheritance, something along those lines. And if you reflect on it and if you approach the situation intuitively, there's absolutely the energy for you to get things going. Just know that whatever it is that you're setting in motion, it might take a little bit longer, and it's probably going to be a lot more work. The same could be said to some dramatic changes that you want to make in your health, in your fitness routines, and also your day-to-day work routines and experience, or your work in general. Again, these are things where you're going to want to make some changes, but communication will come in and it will cause you to have to, or information will come in and it'll cause you to have to kind of slow things down or pivot in some way. But again, the changes are possible. They're just going to take a little bit of extra time and work. All right, for Capricorn and Capricorn rising, this full moon energy is actually hitting you in a little bit more of a positive, beneficial way. So you've been really focused on either a lot of chaos and activity and play and fun and excitement going on involving your children, if you have any, or involving your hobbies, your interests, your passions, the things that you love to do, maybe even a new romance or a new fling coming into the mix. Now's a time where you're going to be pulled out of focusing on that, and you're going to be focusing a little bit more on your social life. You're going to be focusing a little bit more on your friends, your social networks, the people you surround yourself with by choice. This is a great time for networking too, for business. You might find a really good new connection that comes in on this one-on-one basis that propels you into a new partnership, and that could actually be a very beneficial energy. This is also an energy where socializing could benefit your love relationship. It could benefit your marriage, where the sparks may be flying, or the flame might be reignited when it comes to your current partnership, to your marriage, through going out there and connecting with other people, or through just expressing the way that you feel a little bit more openly with your partner. This could also be a time where a new partnership could come in, and it could feel very passionate on an emotional and a physical level, and so you can keep an eye out for that. It'll probably come through your friends or through some sort of social activity. But if there is something that you're trying to initiate involving your passions, your hobbies, the things that you do because you enjoy them, maybe you're trying to start a business to create more resources or something along those lines, something will be illuminated through your connections that will help you to achieve that goal. But just know that it could also be illuminated that it's going to take longer, or that it's going to be a lot more work than what you had planned for, or it might put you in a little bit more of a financial crunch. So just keep that in mind as well. All right. And then for Aquarius and for Aquarius rising. So for Aquarius, this full moon is happening in your 10th house, which is the house of career, public reputation, the work that you do out in the world, the legacy that you leave behind after your working years. And also it's your relationship with bosses, employers, people you look up to, and people in positions of power and authority. And so this, again, for all of the fixed signs, this is going to be a much more challenging, much more emotionally charged, much more intensified energy. And so there's something that's being illuminated in the area of your work or your career that is causing you to need to make some sort of change, or maybe it's delaying the changes that you want to truly make when it comes to your home, your place of living, your property, your family situation, your family dynamic, or changes that you want to make involving your parents, involving, your living situation. I already mentioned that, yeah. But there are some changes that you're trying to make behind the scenes, and all of a sudden something's illuminated. Maybe it's illuminated by a boss. Maybe it's illuminated by somebody you look up to. Maybe it's illuminated by a superior, or maybe it's just something in your work that's revealed to you where you're like, oh crap, now I have to take more time. Now I have to pivot. Now I have these challenges. And it could feel almost like you want to have some sort of emotional temper tantrum over this new development. Just know that the changes that you want to make, they will happen, right? You're going through this major major turning point where you are letting go of everything you once were. You're letting go of old conditioning. You're rebuilding yourself, your goals, your direction in life, who you are and the way other people perceive you. You're rebuilding that and resetting that from the ground up. You're letting go of anything that is not true to you. And that's a painstaking and a lengthy and, difficult process to go through. And so don't rush things, right? Especially when it comes to making tangible physical changes. Don't rush things necessarily. It could also be that something comes up with your work that illuminates the fact that you are really frustrated with your living situation and you need to make that change. And there could also be a work opportunity that comes up that's like, all right, now I got to move. Or now I'm going to have to change, the family dynamic, and the kids are going to have to take on more chores, and we're going to have to hire maybe a housekeeper or whatever it is, right? Or, how the heck are we going to keep up with all of this stuff? We can't afford to hire a housekeeper. So those types of energies could be coming up. And again, just know that if there are delays, frustrations, challenges, the need to pivot, that for the long term, this is actually going to be a very positive thing. It's just going to take a little bit more time than maybe you might want it to. All right. And then for Pisces and for Pisces rising. So for Pisces, this full moon energy is happening in your 9th house, which is the house of higher education. It's the house that gives you perspective. It's the house that frames your perception of reality through your belief systems, through your religion, through your philosophical understanding of the world, through your integrity, right? And so this is going to have you kind of, it's almost like your ethical values, your morality, the things that you hold dear when it comes to your beliefs, they're being exposed, and it's kind of raw and it's out in the open, and you don't necessarily normally share these things as openly or as predominantly as you're going to around the time of this full moon. So that could be one scenario. This is also a time where you might actually have some sort of new educational opportunity that comes in this week, and it could be really exciting for you. It could be a very dramatic change from what you're used to learning and what you're used to engaging with on a mental sort of intellectual level, and that could be quite exciting. But there's something sort of behind the scenes, or there's something subconsciously that might be holding you back or preventing you. There could be some sort of subconscious fear, subconscious anxiety, or maybe there's something in terms of your old life, your old way of engaging with the world that you need to release, you need to work on letting go of in order to move forward with this new mindset, this new opportunity. There could also be a need to engage in some sort of travel. There could be a new travel opportunity that comes up for you, or a new opportunity for you to connect with somebody in a foreign country. And, it could be really exciting, really fun. You could engage in something new involving an educational pursuit for something that you're really passionate about, that your heart's really connected to, that you feel really fired up for, and that could be a really good energy. But for the most part, Pisces, this is going to benefit you. It's going to benefit your mindset. It's going to benefit your relationships too. So you could have some really interesting and positive communication coming in. But this is all about you getting really clear on your deeply held beliefs, putting them out there, and really integrating them into who you are and the way that you engage with the world around you. And that's going to be the biggest focal point for most of you for this supermoon. Oops, we're back to Aries. All right, so that is my forecast for all of the 12 signs. And so let's get into next week's energy. So next week, luckily, it's a little bit calmer in the astrology. We have this period here where, yes, Mercury and the Sun in Taurus will activate the Uranus-Saturn square. This has been an ongoing thing for a few weeks now, where there's been a lot of chaos. There's been a lot of it's been a weird disruptive energy for a lot of people. That's going to definitely be activated next week. It's going to continue. But we also have Venus trining Pluto, which is going to be a really positive energy for making deep commitments, for financial gains, for our relationships, for our self-worth, for anything involving beauty or material possessions. I mean, that's something that's going to kind of offset some of this energy. So it really depends on the way your chart is laid out and what your rising sign is. But we'll have a combination next week of the disruption, the upheaval that we've been experiencing the last 2 weeks and especially this week, but it won't be nearly as intensified, and we'll have a little bit of an outlet with some positive energy coming in where we can really focus our attention on that. And so that's what we'll be getting into for next week. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like this video, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and make sure you share it with your friends if you feel like they could benefit from the information that we discussed today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.